Phillip Seymour Hoffman was an extremely talented Oscar-winning actor, but underneath his stellar success, dark shadows were lurking. On February 2, 2014, he passed away, and countless investigations, rumors, and tributes soon followed. Here's what's come out about him since his passing. Following Phillip Seymour Hoffman's unexpected passing, media outlets tried to piece together the timeline of events leading up to his shocking death.
Police still trying to determine exactly how the 3 men and 1 woman arrested and all those drugs found are connected to Hoffman's death.
One of the most thorough reports came from CNN, which carefully dissected the famous actor's final 24 hours. What they discovered was a bizarre chain of events. Hoffman's morning reportedly began like any other, with a visit to Chocolate Bar on 8th Avenue, where he placed his usual order, a 4-shot espresso over ice with a splash of milk. According to manager Jonathan Hansen, who spoke with CNN, Hoffman seemed perfectly fine. Hansen added, "He seemed in good spirits. He was very happy." That was no longer the case around 2 p.m. when he bumped into his longtime partner, Mimi O'Donnell, on the street. The pair had separated at this point, and Hoffman was living on his own around the corner. She noted that he seemed high. Then, the 46-year-old was later spotted at a New York City restaurant having dinner with 2 people, eating a cheeseburger and drinking a cranberry juice and soda. His night then took a dark turn when, according to an eyewitness, he entered a supermarket with 2 men wearing messenger bags around 8 p.m. He proceeded to take out $1,200 from an ATM in 6 transactions, authorities confirmed. And that was the last time he was seen alive. Despite his illustrious career, which included over 50 film credits and a Best Actor Oscar for Capote in 2006, Phillip Seymour Hoffman reportedly remained humble and friendly. A 2014 People cover story explained, "In the downtown Manhattan neighborhood he had called home for years, Phillip Seymour Hoffman was simply one of the locals. The rumpled cyclist pedaling through the West Village, the dad walking his 3 children to school, the actor poring over scripts or having a drink at one of his favorite low-key bars." Yet, as one local recalled, Hoffman was a master at pulling it all together, then letting it fall apart, the source told People. He'd go over to Oliver's restaurant with his son Cooper. They'd have lunch, and you'd see them talking and laughing for hours at a time. Then, come nightfall, you'd see Phil back at Oliver's, hunched over the bar, alone, looking like an entirely different man. He looked very dark and depressed. Photographer Victoria Will, who shot the actor at the Sundance Film Festival shortly before he passed away, also noted his masterful ability to put on a brave face. She recalled, "He seemed great. He was just a regular guy, which is what I've always loved about him." Hoffman's struggle with drugs and alcohol was a lifelong battle. After drinking heavily and using drugs, he wound up at a rehabilitation center by the age of 22. Speaking with The Guardian in 2011, he confessed, "I had no interest in drinking in moderation, and I still don't. Just because all that time's passed doesn't mean maybe it was just a phase. That's who I am." Hoffman's sobriety lasted for 23 years thanks to therapy and AA meetings. Then he relapsed, as Mimi O'Donnell noted in her 2017 Vogue tribute to her ex. O'Donnell wrote, "I didn't fully understand that addiction is always lurking just below the surface, looking for a moment of weakness to come roaring back to life." Hoffman first relapsed with alcohol, then prescription opioids, then heroin. And yet, throughout it all, the extent of his addiction was hidden from the public until after his passing. Upon further investigation, authorities reportedly discovered signs of drug use, including 49 unopened glassines, paper envelopes often used to hold heroin. There were also 8 empty glassines, 20 used needles, and pills prescribed for treating anxiety and high blood pressure. However, those reports varied. The New York Post reported that 5 empty glassines were found in a trash bin, and 3 others were discovered around the home, as well as 70 unused glassines in a desk drawer. Yet the Daily Mail claimed a different number, 49 full glassines and 7 empty glassines found in Hoffman's apartment. The exact numbers weren't the only thing that was disputed. Following a spike in deaths linked to fentanyl-laced heroin, including 22 overdoses in Pittsburgh in 2014, Slate noted that this may have been the culprit behind Hoffman's own overdose. As the outlet explained, fentanyl, a prescription drug used for pain relief, is, quote, cheaper and between 50 to 80 times more potent. But The Atlantic pointed out that the name stamped on each of the glassines, representing the type of heroin found inside, didn't match any of those linked to the fentanyl-laced overdoses in other cases, saying that Hoffman's death coincides with a rash of heroin-fentanyl overdoses is certainly suggestive. But at this point, it seems most likely that his death was more prosaic, a fairly recently relapsed heroin user taking an overdose of the drug. On February 4, 2014, just 2 days after Hoffman's overdose, the New York Post reported 4 suspected dealers were arrested in connection with his death, following a raid on a New York City drug den where the actor was suspected of buying heroin. Among them was musician Robert Aaron Weinberg, who is believed to be the actor's primary drug dealer. In addition to Hoffman, Weinberg was reportedly close with Jean-Michel Basquiat. He was said to have had him over at his apartment often, where they both, quote, used a lot of heroin. The legendary artist overdosed in 1988. Weinberg was also reportedly tight with Amy Winehouse, although there are no reports of the pair ever using drugs together. Weinberg agreed to an interview with the New York Post from behind bars to maintain his innocence, saying, "He was my friend. I could have saved him. If I knew he was in town, I would have said, hey, let's make an AA meeting. If I was with him, it wouldn't have happened, not under my guard." Even so, he admitted to seeing Hoffman high and claimed that Hoffman may have been using as many as 10 bags of heroin a day. When asked if he had ever sold drugs to the late actor, Weinberg refused to answer. Screenwriter and playwright David Barr Katz and Phillip Seymour Hoffman's assistant, Isabella Wing Davey, were the people who discovered Hoffman's body, and Katz's involvement apparently helped fuel tabloid rumors that the pair were more than just friends. What actually happened, as reported by the New York Post, was that Hoffman failed to pick up his kids from Mimi O'Donnell as scheduled. So she asked the playwright to go check on him at his rented apartment, which he did. Wing Davey let Katz into Hoffman's home. That didn't stop the National Enquirer from publishing allegations about a relationship between Hoffman and Katz. The paper ran an alleged interview with Katz in which he apparently admitted to having an affair with the late actor. Katz vehemently denied the story, going so far as to sue the National Enquirer for $50 million, claiming the article was a complete fabrication. Katz's lawyer issued an additional statement on his behalf, saying, "There was no interview. Barr Katz and Hoffman were never lovers. Barr Katz did not see Hoffman freebasing cocaine the night before he died or at any other time. Barr Katz never saw Hoffman use heroin or cocaine." Throughout his career, Phillip Seymour Hoffman kept his private life private. He and his longtime partner, Mimi O'Donnell, had 3 children together, Cooper, Tallulah, and Willa. But little was known about any of them. When the Oscar winner suddenly died in 2014, the kids were just 10, 7, and 5 years old, people reported. But it turns out that their young ages weren't the reason why they didn't inherit any of their famous father's fortune. Instead, it was because the actor purposely left them out of his will, leaving all of the assets of the $35 million estate to their mother, Today confirmed. E! News was able to gain access to the probate documents surrounding Hoffman's will from Manhattan Surrogate Court, in which Hoffman's reasoning for the unconventional decision was revealed. In the papers, Hoffman was quoted as telling his accountant that he, quote, did not want his children to be considered trust fund kids. The documents also noted that although they never wed, Hoffman treated O'Donnell as his wife, and their lack of nuptials did not affect his affinity or relationship. He simply did not believe in marriage. Despite being most widely known for his big screen roles, Phillip Seymour Hoffman decided to throw fans a curveball and signed on to executive produce and star in a TV show on Showtime called Happy-ish. According to Variety, the series was set to debut in 2014 with a 10-episode run in which Hoffman would play a 40-something man working for a Facebook-like company who was frustrated by feeling out of touch while surrounded by younger colleagues. Although a half-hour pilot was already filmed, having been shot in September 2013 before Hoffman's passing, production hadn't actually started on the show. Initially unsure how to continue, Showtime eventually decided to recast Happy-ish, choosing Steve Coogan to take over Hoffman's leading role. The Hollywood Reporter pointed out that most of the original cast didn't actually stick around for the revamped first season, which marked the beginning of the end. The show premiered in 2015, snagging only 430,000 viewers and receiving largely negative reviews. The Hollywood Reporter dubbed Happy-ish, quote, more annoying than funny. The series was eventually pulled off the air, failing to secure a second season due to flagging viewership. Mimi O'Donnell, Hoffman's longtime partner, revealed in a Vogue 2017 tribute, "The first time I met Phil, there was instant chemistry between us. After meeting in 1999, when she interviewed to be the costume designer for In Arabia, We'd All Be Kings, the first play Hoffman ever directed, the pair went on their first date in 2001. O'Donnell wrote, "From the beginning, Phil was very frank about his addictions. Being sober and a recovering addict was, along with acting and directing, very much the focus of his life."
Whatever I was doing made me worry if I was going to be able to do the things I wanted to do with my life.
Things were fine for years, but as O'Donnell stated, the first tangible sign of trouble came when, out of nowhere, Phil said to me, "I've been thinking I want to try to have a drink again. What do you think?" Their relationship would never be the same. That drink gave way to prescription opioids, and Hoffman secretly began using heroin again. O'Donnell recalled, "I sensed it, terrified. I told him, 'You're going to die.' That's what happens with heroin. Every day was filled with worry. Every night when he went out, I wondered, will I see him again?" Watching her love struggle with sobriety became heartbreaking, according to O'Donnell, who stated, "For the first time, I realized that his addiction was bigger than either of us. I bowed my head and thought, I can't fix this. It was the moment that I let go." Released in 2018, Beautiful Boy stars actors Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet, and tells the story of a father and his teenage son who's battling meth addiction. It scored Chalamet a Golden Globe nom for Best Supporting Actor and received overall positive reviews. But as it turns out, the movie almost didn't get made, at least not with writer Luke Davies attached. Speaking with Pete Hammond from Deadline, Davies, who battled addiction himself, revealed that he actually vowed to stay away from the subject of drugs after penning the novel and screenplay Candy, and thus decided to turn down Beautiful Boy. Then everything changed because of Phillip Seymour Hoffman. 3 days before Davies was set to meet producers to turn it down, Hoffman had died, and Davies got a powerful message. My dad wrote me an email which said, "I suppose you heard about Phillip Seymour Hoffman. That's really sad. Luke, sometimes I feel this family is so blessed." He was talking about my own history with addiction that resulted in me eventually getting clean. Davies added, "My dad was not one given to express his emotions in any very overt way, especially about the past like that. And at that moment, it was kind of like, oh, I never ever dealt with the father-son relationship in Candy because it was too difficult, too loaded, and so maybe this is an invitation from the universe to change my opinion about taking this job." At that moment, I thought, oh, I really want this job.
You have to make your reputation on being honest and unmerciful.
Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Nicki Swift videos about your favorite celebrities are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.